City Council for February 16th, 2015. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as distributed by our city clerk, Carla Geyer?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion is second and council discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to amend the agenda to move staff comments to after public hearings D, so that they come in, I think, discussion on, from this last weekend or Friday with the Green Bridge. It would be good to get early in the meeting to have that
Okay.
information for the public on that.
Is there a second on the amendment motion?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor signify with yes.
Yes.
Opposed with no. We'll vote on the amended agenda. All in favor signify with yes.
Yes.
Opposed with no. This is our agenda for this evening. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from February 2nd, as distributed also by our city clerk?
Move approval of the February 2nd minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Council discussion? All in favor signify with yes.
Yes.
Opposed with no. These are unanimously approved minutes. We welcome Jeff Mick back as our guest council person for the month. So it should be an interesting meeting, and it's good to have you a part of the Voice. This is the date, time, and place for a public hearing on the proposed 2015-16 fiscal year budget. City Clerk, do we have any written comments?
We had one written comment from Barb Waltman in opposition of the $50,000 contribution to the Waverly Area Veterans Post. She would like to see it used for other public projects.
Thank you. City Administrator, Finance Director, any comments that would be helpful before we open to the public for their comments?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Tonight's budget hearing is for setting the tax levy rate for fiscal year 15-16 at $14.05 per thousand assessed valuation, a decrease of roughly 10 cents from the current year's levy. The budget proposed is a balanced budget focusing on capital and operations. We worked hard to keep most line items at a zero change. Our overall general fund is roughly similar to last year, and we believe that we're holding staffing level and we're keeping operations and services where people expect them for the community of Waverly. Jack, do you have any further comments?
I think that's covers it.
Then we invite public comments at this time on our 2015-2016 budget. Hearing no comments, I close the hearing. A formal motion would be in order.
Move approval of Resolution 1520, a resolution adopting the budget fiscal year 2015-2016 is hereby approved.
Second,
Second.
council discussion.
Guess we've had a couple of Saturdays where we got to go through this, and I think in order to thank the directors and Phil for working on some of our priorities and wishes in terms of keeping the budget in check and actually coming up with a way where we are lowering our tax levy. We're not actually, citizens won't actually necessarily see a decrease in their property taxes as far as overall, but from what the city is asking, what we're looking for is less than what we've asked in the past, where the difference comes in the convoluted in what the state does with the rollback and the assessed values and some of that, but we're actually about $60,000 less in our property taxes this year than we were last year. If I'm looking at it right, from what we're taking in property taxes. So I think we're doing a decent job trying to keep that under control. It would be nice to continue to keep whittling away at that.
Other comments?
I think I said this last year too, that, so we don't come to a hearing on the budget and hear no discussion from the council. There's a lot of work that goes into the budget, a lot of Saturdays, a lot of meetings that maybe people didn't see. So we've been through it significantly. I know at the beginning of this, one of my requests was the staff to take a look at, really, I guess my request, and it was my own personal request, was if we would look for ways, if we, for some unknown reason, had to look for ways to cut the budget. I think my number was 10%. How would we do that? And I thought the staff came back, and that's a daunting task, and I thought the staff came back with a pretty good shot at that. So I appreciate the work on that, so.
If I may, just one of the good takeaways from this year, I think, is that notion of contingency planning. Many cities had to use their state backfill this year to just survive, and we were able to use it to reduce the levy rate and save some for a rainy day. We were able to look at, if we had to do 10%, how would we do that? And I think we are actually turning to look even more so at what does the next 5, 10, 15 years look like, and how do we plan for that too? So, and a lot of time, we appreciate the time that the council puts in to our Saturdays and our emails and our evenings and all of that too, to just ask good questions, set the direction, and help come up with, I think, a really good plan for the next fiscal year.
I should probably clarify, there's, most departments, you can't take 10% out. I mean, I don't want to say that we came up with a plan and we didn't act on that. There's a lot of departments that are basically, I mean, they're basically providing the service and taking the money to provide that service, so there's not fluff. So I just wanted to make that point before we went forward. So,
I think sometimes we may lose track of the things we do as we just
Exactly.
do our normal job. I had asked Jack for a couple numbers, just, I know we went through kind of restructuring workman's comp, and conservative estimate there is we save $100,000 in this year's budget. The things that we did with the health insurance, again, over a 2-year period, $150,000. So sometimes we just go about doing our business, and we're very frugal with our money, and that gets lost when we get down to the big numbers in the budget. And I think staff has a lot to do with that. When we tell them to go out and save us money, they find ways to do it, so.
Any other comments? Excellent comments. Roll call vote, please.
Kangas,
Yes.
Nyendorf,
yes.
Gade,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes,
Lampy,
Yes.
Waldstein,
Yes.
Resnicek.
Yes.
Resolution 1520, unanimously approved. We now have a levy rate, which we can't not raise, ladies and gentlemen. This is the date, time, and place for a public hearing to vacate and convey 3rd Avenue Northwest, that's between 7th and 8th Street, in the alley right-of-way in Block 67, which is the Knott addition, to Wartburg College. City Clerk, any written comments on this item?
No, Your Honor.
I invite any public comments on this issue.
Dwayne Little, Waverly. Although the amount for the street, the one block of street there, is the same amount paid by St. Paul's Church for the block that we vacated there, there is no money for the alley that we're vacating, so we are gifting the alley. And whatever square foot that is that we're giving away.
Fine, appreciate the note. Any other public comments? Then I close the hearing. A motion would be in order.
I'll move Resolution 1521, authorizing the vacation and conveyance of 3rd Avenue Northwest between 7th Street and 8th Street Northwest in the alley right-of-way in Block 67, not addition to Wartburg College for $5,227.
Is there a second?
second,
Motion and second, council discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Resnicek,
Yes.
Lampy,
Yes.
Gade,
Yes.
Waldstein,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Neuendorf.
Yes.
Resolution 15-21 is unanimously approved. At this time, I'll entertain any public comments on any items not on tonight's agenda. Did I skip something?
Yes, staff comments.
What?
Staff comments.
I was going to do them a part of this.
Okay.
Any public comments on anything not on tonight's agenda? And a part of our public comments will be some staff comments at this time that we've moved up in the agenda to cover particularly our Green Bridge.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mike and I will kind of tell the story together on this one because he's a better historian than I. As you all know, we are in our biannual bridge inspection program. We passed that, I think, 2 weeks ago with WHKS Engineering out of Mason City. They are one of the major bridge inspection teams in the state, and we've had a contract with them for many years. Actually, we found some documentation today where they first started inspecting the Green Bridge in 1970. They were inspecting last week. They inspect all of our major vehicle bridges, plus I think 11 trail bridges for us. And so Friday, we got word from them that they had wrapped up their inspection of the Green Bridge, and they were requesting/directing that we close it as soon as possible due to structural deterioration. Mike can give the details on what parts of the bridge were found to be deficient. But we went ahead and issued a quick press release because it was right before school dismissal at Southeast Elementary and barricaded the bridge, and then worked to get the word out to K-Way and the paper and KWWL. Moving ahead, we need to get the full report and understand kind of what's going on, and then basically sit down and look at what are our options. We know that in this day and age, almost anything is possible, but what's feasible and what's acceptable. And so we've looked at, or we will be looking at, I should say, options for restoring it to vehicles and pedestrian, restoring it for just pedestrian, replacing it with a new vehicle and pedestrian bridge, replacing it with a pedestrian bridge. And Mike has some figures on just some rough costs because Janesville and Charles City just put in pedestrian bridges. The county is right now putting in a full bridge on C-33 just north of us to give us kind of a ballpark. But a little history, in 1970, there was an inspection and the bridge was closed basically immediately following that inspection because the structure at the time could not support the weight that it was designed for and the weight that had come upon it from its different decking. And so I think there was some corrosion on the east downstream side, if I remember right, in reading the reports, because there was a gas line that kind of trapped debris and moisture along the metalwork and caused it to corrode. And so in the 70s, there was in 1970, there was work done on that downstream side of the decking and the structure below. In 83, there was another major project to weld on some supports, replace some bolts and gusset plates, and remove the asphalt over wood decking and put in a grate. And that basically took a lot of weight off the bridge to allow the bridge to support some weight. In 2003, there was a major community study, major stakeholder group over many months, and WHKS was also a part of that to facilitate those meetings because of their history with the bridge. No real action came out of that, but that's when I believe we started setting aside some money every year for ongoing maintenance. And then in 2006, I believe, was the sidewalk work that was done with that cantilevered sidewalk on the upstream side because there was a bunch of failing concrete on that sidewalk. So a little bit short history of the maintenance. If Mike can maybe go over more of the findings from last week and how these inspections typically work, and then maybe look at some of the ballpark options that we know are out there in the region.
Fine.
And AV support with that.
So the bridge inspection report focused in on some existing conditions that have been persistent for quite a long time. And these are things that literally go back decades, and they've continued to get worse over the years. One of the things that was mentioned was specifically was the connection of the bearings, and this is what that's in reference to. This would be at the south abutment on the downstream side, and you can see the corrosion. This one was worked on in 1970. We know that because of the hex bolts. But there is a pin connection there that holds and supports. And this was the downstream side that had the gas line and had the extensive corrosion along the bottom cords. It was trapping debris and moisture. And so in 1970, the bridge was shut down until the repairs were done. Very extensive repairs. They had to crib the entire bridge at that time in order to be able to replace these members. On the southwest corner, this is the one that is most troubling and is probably the primary cause for shutting the bridge down, that the gusset plates and the connections here have basically rusted away. So, you know, the question is, well, what type of failure could this lead to? Probably what would happen initially is that if it were to fail, the pin would shear and fail at this point, and the bridge would probably drop about 6 inches and come to rest on the concrete abutment. Other items that were identified were the sidewalk support brackets, and this is the area of concern. This is showing, this is when the old sidewalk was on there, so this photo is from 12 years ago. The issues are certainly more extensive today, 12 years later, but this is what we're seeing is that these support bracket connections are basically rusting away and gone. So, you know, there again, well, what's the concern? What's the type of failure? The thing with the vehicle bridge, it's a one-lane road down to 5 with a 5-ton load limit. So, you know, does that mean one vehicle per span, or is that multiple vehicles per span? You know, again, it's supposed to be a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. But in fact, do people really kind of follow that and abide by that? Additionally, we do have oversized loads that have gone across it. So there is that ongoing concern. What about the sidewalk? Gee, a person walking across the sidewalk doesn't seem like it could result in a failure. No, but what about the cross-country team going across at the same time? Those are things that are factored into the decisions to close the bridge to vehicle traffic, close the bridge to pedestrian traffic. You have to think of those types of scenarios. Things that were of concern that led to the work in 1982 and 83 were actually identified in the mid-70s. This bridge would have originally had a wood plank system on there. And so what you're seeing here are the floor beams that run lengthwise with the bridge. The wood deck would have gone across it. But at some point, they had overlaid it with asphalt. Just the weight of the deck exceeded the load capacity of the bridge. Now, bridges are built with a factor of safety, typically a factor of safety of 2. But when you lose half of your steel due to corrosion, you're now approaching, you know, the limit, the threshold of the structural capacity of the bridge. In 1983 or 82, again, it was basically deemed to be shut down and repaired. The metal deck was installed. They removed, the original bridge was designed with a total dead load, live load of 100 pounds per square foot. The asphalt and wood deck alone, I think, weighed like 88 pounds per square foot. moisture was seeping through the wood decking, getting trapped on top of the floor beams. In doing that, you know, we salt our roads to get rid of snow and ice. But it's also very corrosive to steel, especially when the steel can't dry out. The wood decking on top was preventing the steel from drying out, preventing the salt from getting washed off. That was leading to, you know, very rapid deterioration of our structural system on the floor deck. By removing the decking, we were in 83 and installing it with the grading system, we were able to greatly reduce the rate of deterioration because it was able to dry out, it was able to be washed off and cared for, which allowed us to get another 32 years of life out of it. But sections of it were still continuing to deteriorate. Again, the pin connections and the brackets for the sidewalk. The sidewalk was replaced in, I want to say, I think it was around 2006. And this is what the underside of it looked like prior to that. The concrete was spalling off, exposing all the reinforcing steel. So in 2006, the decision was made at that time to replace it. So if you go in and you say, well, let's do major repairs to the superstructure, it can be done. It's just quite costly, and you will still have a one-lane bridge with a 5-ton load limit. But the steel structure is supported by your concrete piers and abutments. And these are also continuing to degrade. What we can't see in this picture, but is of most concern, is the pier cap. And Phil got a first-hand look of that last Friday, that where the south span and the middle span rest on this, the concrete pier cap is again deteriorating, disintegrating. And structurally, these are coming to the end of their life as well. This, I believe, is thinking this is the north abutment, the northeast side. Lighting isn't so good, but you can see where the concrete has had deterioration as well. So the bridge is really just kind of at the end of its useful life. And you know, there's some minor things. It's a bent member, not significant concerns, a tension member, but again, just more fatigue and damage on it. This is some of the curbing down low, not a structural component, but you look here, there's not much left. And this was taken 12 years ago, this photograph, 12, 14 years ago. So these are the ongoing issues with it, with the structure. You know, in some respects, this was a very common style of bridge to be built in the turn of the century, the 1900s, 1917. But at that time, we were still using a lot of horse and buggies, and we weren't thinking of the mass transit and vehicles that we have today. This corridor handles anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 vehicles a day. So it is used quite a bit. In 2003, there was a 15-member task force put together to investigate what should we be thinking about, what should we be planning for before it fails. Let's be proactive and come up with a plan to move forward. That 15-member task force really kind of laid it all out on the table, really started to focus in on kind of three options. Do we repair it, replace it, or relocate it? The committee then also came up with a couple of hybrid options. What if we were to relocate it but convert it to a pedestrian-only bridge? And some options like that. In the end, even though it was very, very close, the recommendation that ranked highest was to replace the bridge. That the only way that we were going to receive bridge funding from the state was if we replaced it and eliminated the restrictions on width, height, and weight. We would not receive any state assistance to repair it and keep it with those restrictions on width, height, and weight. So at that time, the recommendation of the committee to the council was to replace the bridge. The council heard from some others within the community, didn't feel comfortable proceeding forward, and decided to kind of go with the next it wasn't even really an option. The next option that ranked highest by the committee was to do extensive repairs to the bridge. The council in 2003 took a different approach of let's do some maintenance on it, some minimal maintenance to keep it going with the hope that there would be more, I guess, community consensus on one specific direction. So every year I get a notice from the state of Iowa that says this bridge is a candidate for state funding. Does the city want to proceed with a reconstruction project, or do we want to or defer another year? So for the last 11, 12 years, we defer the funding. And yet we keep having, about every couple of years, an issue come up. A few years ago, like I said, we replaced the sidewalk. Another time we replaced the South Bridge approach. And it's kind of been this process of let's continue just to, as issues come up, we'll make some minimal repairs and kind of keep limping along. Now it's coming back to bite us. We don't have a plan, and we got a bridge that got shut down. This is a bridge that is of, I think, great significance to the community for many different reasons. Some people, it's historic, it's sentimental, it's nostalgic. For others, it's about transportation. It's about getting a shortcut across the river so they don't have to, so they can avoid several traffic lights. For others, it's a pedestrian route. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I think, Phil and I have discussed this at length. I think our recommendation going forward is that there needs to be a reconvening of some type of community group to, again, from these different aspects of the community to decide what is a path forward at this point. Is it to repair, replace, relocate? Is it to,
And that's why I think, and Mike, maybe you can kind of cover just so we can have some perspective on options. It really is, what are our options moving forward? And then to try to get feedback from the council, maybe some other stakeholders, and what should that look like for Waverly? How will that work? Can you give some examples just from your quick research today from Charles City?
Hey, Mike, before you go on, just to make it clear, the first picture you put on with the bearing, I guess just to clarify, that's probably not rust and paint removal. I mean, it's looking that way because of the force on that joint over time. It's probably causing an acceleration of the deterioration. I guess I don't want to leave the message that, you know, if we paint it, it wouldn't have fell apart. It's deteriorating there because of the forces on that joint over time,
And the salt and the corrosion, yeah,
expediting that, but, yeah.
right.
But you're right, it's not just Rust-Oleum and a wire brush type of.
The thing is, I'm amazed this bridge has lasted as long as it has. It's been through, going backwards in time, in 2008, a 500-year flood, in 99, a 100-year flood. It was flooded in 93, peaked, what was it, 63, yeah.
How many bearings look like this? How many bearings look like this, wonder?
Well, there's a total of 12. The section that is of greatest concern is on the south side, yeah. And again, I'm just amazed the structure's lasted as long as it has and hasn't ended up in the river. I mean, that's really incredible. Back in 2003, this is from the 2003 report, they were saying probably will require repairs or closure within 5 years. So, okay, we got 12 years. You know, we've done pretty well with this bridge.
If I recall, the last time it was looked at, the replacement due to DOT standards, that type of thing, it would have had to been raised considerably, which would have meant that we probably would have lost 2 or 3 houses on both the north and south side for approaches, those type of things, and
Right.
What is the relationship between options for the future and the second phase, I think it is, of 10th Avenue?
Well, one of the recommendations by the commission was to continue pursuing 10th Avenue, and kind of half the group wanted to convert this to a pedestrian bridge, and the other half said, no, we need it as a vehicle bridge. That's an important connection. It does get 3,000 vehicles a day, 2,000 to 3,000. So it does have a meaningful value to the community as a vehicle bridge. And those are the decisions that are going to have to be considered going forward. We're not prepared to make a recommendation. We think that discussion needs to take place within the community and work its way on up.
When was the last time an inspection was done?
A year ago.
Did it look like this back then? Or did it decay this fast in a year?
Well, it's been progressing. It's been a progression that it was of concern enough 12 years ago to convene a community group and task force to start planning for its eventual closure. And
I didn't know if they ever recommended a death curve, so we knew we kind of had a little bit of.
it was, so
2013 was kind of the latest one where they said, the 2013 report was more extensive. That was, again, the kind of holistic all-city bridges. And they had a page in there that just kind of outlined the same issues, more photos, and there they kind of, again, reiterated that 5-year time horizon. They think within the next 5 years, we see this bridge probably being closed. Last year's report essentially said, we don't find many new things compared to 2013. We just reemphasize those.
But I think they also mandated, or I think we heard this last week, Dave, when you weren't able to be here, or last meeting, that they have said it requires an annual inspection, and for how long has that been? Yeah.
last year, 2014 was the first annual inspection, and so it was, again, it was just enough that they were seeing enough that it's got a, I think a good analogy to use is your car tires. You monitor the wear in your car tires, but at some point you say, yeah, I'm no longer comfortable driving on them, it's time to replace them. Now, how often do you check your car tires? Or do you have your mechanic do it when you take it in for an oil change? Okay. Well, you get to a point where you gotta replace your tires. Everyone feels a little bit differently as far as when that occurs. But with this, we ran those tires right down to the nub and probably beyond on this. So, you know, in their opinion, they have to say, is it reasonable to keep the bridge open for another year until we do our next inspection? And they're saying no. And so that's why you get to the point where you gotta say, you gotta park the car, you gotta replace the tires, you gotta do something.
The 2013 inspection report also recommended that, or didn't recommend, but I think it stated that the repairs at this point are not economically feasible or too extensive to be able to do that.
Right.
This is a year later from that even.
Yeah, their recommendation was basically, with significant section loss to the superstructure, we just recommend that there be monitoring between the regular inspections, and that time the regular was every 2 years. And so it was basically recommending monitoring of significant deterioration to the concrete on the piers. And so their final sentence is, due to the advanced deterioration of many structural elements, we anticipate the bridge will need to be taken out of service within 5 years. So they didn't even really talk about repairs or anything. It was just, you have a time window here, you need to think about this. And I think back to the comment about this versus Cedar River Parkway Bridge, they're, we don't view them as one or the other because they kind of go in different directions and serve different areas. So it really is a discussion about this area and this southeast access.
But I was just thinking for folks at home who are listening, and as we get into the community input, it would probably be good for people to know approximately where that 10th Avenue crossing would be.
It was when 2003, when that task force was put together, I mean, when they looked at replacing it where it was, and like Dan said, it would have to take houses out on each side because it has to meet 500-year flood levels and stuff. But they also looked at different places to cross the river to put in a new bridge, and so the 10th Avenue area was kind of one that they looked at, and so it fits
Similar
into
alignment.
that plan. I mean, that was
And there-
one of the replacement areas.
And there are most of those houses that would have to be taken are in fact gone now, right? Or what?
Two are.
2 are gone and 2 are left.
They're kitty corner, so it's not even as if you can scoot it over, you know, to one side.
I live in the other one, I think.
Yeah.
Now, another concern too with routing that traffic, if you do replace that bridge with something that's 2-lane and you can, it'll accept more traffic, is we're feeding that bridge through residential areas that really, the streets aren't wide enough for that kind of traffic flow, I don't think. And then you're putting in, you know, you've got the school there and then all that traffic as well.
They are classified, the city has had them classified as collector streets for a long, long time. And, I mean, decades. And the streets are the same width as other collector streets in town, the standard 35-foot width. We do have a couple collector streets that are wider, 5th Avenue Northwest and 2nd Avenue Southwest. Those were allowed to have parking on both sides. Things you can do to these streets is restrict parking to only one side to better accommodate it. Many of the concerns of residents along that corridor that were opposed to the replacement option was that it would open it up so that buses and delivery trucks and stuff could use it. And they saw that as a detriment and were opposed to that option. So,
They just didn't want it to be a two-lane bridge that would, they like the 1-lane bridge to limit the traffic in that neighborhood is what.
they just wanted us to fix the hum and the slapping of the plates and everything else, so. But, again, this is not something that has a quick fix. It's not like we can, you know, repair a couple of gusset plates real quickly and it'll be back open to traffic. That's not the case. This is down for the count without significant repairs or replacement.
Can you just wrap it up by letting us know when the final report's in and when we'll get any kind of information or estimates, and we can start planning to go
Do-
forward with stuff.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, you're going to get a report that looks very similar to the past,
Yep,
except it's going to say it had deteriorated to the point where
Yep.
it warranted closure of both the roadway and the sidewalk. Going forward, I think here are some things that I would throw out that I think would be of value, and I think over the next couple of weeks, if you have thoughts and recommendations or want information too, maybe we can try to package all this into one council meeting then and report back. But question is, what would be the cost to do very extensive repairs to it if we wanted to keep it? And, you know, whether that was to open it back up to vehicle traffic or whether it was simply to do some significant repairs but keep it and convert it to a pedestrian bridge. Maybe that looks something like removing the sidewalk section and converting the roadway deck so it can accommodate pedestrians. What would that maybe look like, and what would that cost if it's even feasible? Another option would be, what if it was replaced with a pedestrian-only bridge? Janesville just did that. They had a bridge that looked very similar to this, the Barrick Road Bridge, that was struck and collapsed into the river, or partially collapsed. They finally got their pedestrian bridge in to create that community link. That was a couple of years ago. That project got underway. It was somewhere between $800,000 and $900,000. But it's kind of your standard, more modern, generic pedestrian bridge. 10 foot wide, 480 feet long. Charles City has a bridge that is a little more iconic for their community. They went with a cable stay bridge structure. They had a suspension bridge up there that was destroyed in the 2008 flood. They did receive a significant amount of FEMA funding, somewhere between $3.5 million to replace it because of its historic nature and to replace it again with something iconic. This bridge is 420 feet long, and I believe the price tag is somewhere around $3 million. I can kind of confirm and verify that.
Competing green.
As far as what would a replacement vehicle bridge look like, C-33, just north of town, is a new structure that's going in, so I can get some information on that and as far as what the cost and what the size of that is. I know that structure, I believe, is only 30 feet wide, and there's no pedestrian accommodations on it that I'm aware of. So we have some comparisons to
And
work
what,
with.
do you know the price of that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Are there any lower ratings, weight ratings, but you can still drive a car over it for this bridge?
No.
5 tons is
No.
about as low as.
Yeah, I didn't know if that's,
Yeah.
I didn't know if that includes, you know, a different class of vehicle as well as cars or something. Or we can restrict it further. I didn't know.
Good question.
And Mike, another thing, if that bridge was not there, would we have opportunity, let's just say we can't repair the bridge, there's nothing we can do with it as far as converting it to a pedestrian bridge. Is there opportunity to remove it and open up the floodway and getting some benefit for Southeast Waverly as far as flood control?
The hydraulic modeling showed that the existing bridge upstream, immediately upstream, like about where your house is, I guess, it's about a 5 to 6 inch impact. So to totally remove it, open everything up, is only about a 5 to 6 inch benefit. By the time you're up around the curve, heading north up towards Bremer Avenue, it's zero benefit. So it's just for that few hundred yards upstream, a couple hundred yards maybe.
If you block that water going underneath the Green Bridge, most of it would be diverted over towards, north of Southeast School, then, correct? No, it goes down that natural waterway north of, it would end up north of, or not north, south of Southeast School.
Well, out by the Crestwood area.
Correct, through the Crestwood Park.
Yeah, I mean, we have inundation mapping that shows what the impacts are, that can show with or without. So it has some impact, but it's not dramatic impact.
Any comments on the staff comments? It's a helpful briefing, thank you. We have 7 items on tonight's consent calendar. They are a pay request from Water's Edge Aquatic Design for the swimming pool renovation project. We have VJ Engineering wanting to pay a bill for the 2nd Street Northwest Storm Sewer Street improvements. We have Design Alliance, a bill for the Public Services Center. We have 3 liquor licenses, 1 to Happy Hour Bar, 1 to Dollar General Store, and 1 to Tapatia Restaurant. We also have approval of the January cash disbursements. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify with yes.
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 Opposed with no. Consent calendar is approved. Regular business item number 1 is to approve an engagement agreement to use Ehlers and Cooney as our bond counsel for our sewer revenue bonds for a flat fee of $6,500. City Administrator, any comments?
This is the next 3 items here are our standard kind of formalities that we enter into agreement with our bond counsel. Also setting time and date for the public hearing, and then talk about our reimbursement resolution so we can spend our own money and then reimburse it with bond proceeds. So this is all part of the sewer bond issue, revenue bonds, pure revenue bonds, for the first phase of the Public Services Center.
Thank you. Formal motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 1522, approving an engagement agreement between the City of Waverly and Ehlers and Cooney PC in its capacity as bond counsel for proceedings for not to exceed $2,190,000 sewer revenue bonds, Series 2015A.
Is there a second?
Second,
Motion and second and council discussion.
assuming this amount's been adjusted for the bids coming in on the first phase, and
This year, we did water bonds first, then we did the bids so that we could tailor the sewer bonds to fit the low bid. Excuse me.
Public input?
Going to the Waverly. The last page of that contract talks about, I don't remember what the word was, but it talks about documents that are generated during the course of the work that they'll be doing for the city. And at their discretion, they're allowing themselves to destroy those documents as opposed to providing those documents to the city of Waverly, and the city of Waverly could decide what to do with them since we've already paid for them. So it seems like we should alter that part of the contract to not allow that last paragraph before the signature page. It says right above, this page was left intentionally blank. That paragraph right there, the very last sentence or two of that.
You may stay at the podium. Council, do you wonder?
Well, that's a paragraph where it says that if we provide anything to them, that we can ask for that to be returned to them. They're just saying that their own notes and their own files can be destroyed during their normal procedures for disposing of files. That's a pretty common provision for lawyers to have. They don't usually return their own files to the client.
How does that work with, as far as open records, if they're employed by us? Does that?
Well, the documents we provide to them are open records. The work product that they do, and when they have notes in their files, I wouldn't consider that to be open records, but the product that they create and provide to us would be open records, obviously.
It's it's the end result of what they come up with
Right.
is what comes out to the open record on our side. Okay.
Correct, and that's what we maintain pursuant to state code and our retention schedule.
They're
A
only
lawyer- a
referring
lawyer's
to their
files-
own files, the way I read it.
Yeah, like work product.
Yeah, lawyers' files are generally the lawyer's files. They're their notes and their copies of things, and the lawyers usually return the materials that are provided to them if they're asked to. But generally, they retain ownership of those files.
Good question. Is that satisfactory?
Well, that goes contrary to my own personal experience in hiring lawyers. When I hired a lawyer, I got all those documentation because I paid for his time to generate those documents. And that's why they came back to me. And since it's public money that's being paid to generate those documents belong to the public.
Well, point well taken. Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Lampy.
Yes.
Gade.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Resnichek.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Nayendorf.
Yes.
Resolution 15-22 is unanimously approved. Regular business item number 2 is to fix March 2nd, 2015 as a date to consider issuing $2 million plus, same amount as before, for our sewer revenue bonds. I think we've already commented on that. A formal motion would be in order.
Move resolution 1523, fixing the date for a meeting on the proposition for the issuance of not to exceed $2,190,000 super revenue bonds, Series 2015A, of the City of Waverly, State of Iowa, for March 2nd, 2015, at 7 p.m. in the Ivan Ike Ackerman Council Chambers of City Hall, and providing for publication of notice thereof.
Second.
Motion second and council discussion. Public input. Roll call vote, please.
Kangas.
Yes.
Nayendorf.
Yes.
Gade.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Lampy.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Resnichek.
Yes.
Resolution 15-23 is unanimously approved. Regular business item number 3 is a resolve of intent to issue debt in order to reimburse the city for its dry run sidewalk expenditures, et cetera, as required under Treasury regulations. This would call for no, same comments, City Administrator?
Again, we've done this quite often in the past where a project may get started before bond proceeds are received from the marketplace. So this allows us to use our money in other funds temporarily for this, and then when we get bond proceeds, to reimburse those funds to keep them whole and use the bonds for the project.
Thank you. Formal motion.
Could I just
Yes.
for explanation, we talked about how the dry run was first estimated at 9.5, and then it came in under, and so we may have had to curtail the sidewalk program, but we are borrowing 7.8 for the dry run and 250,000 for the sidewalk, correct? That's,
Yes, so
we can
so
keep
how
that
we
sidewalk going.
exactly, thank you. How we structured those bonds was to add in for the dry run and the sidewalk to keep the sidewalk going. We have $190,000 from bond proceeds from last year that we transferred to the sidewalk too. And we are able to use some cash on hand in the debt service fund to keep the levy rates where we initially proposed them for debt service over the next 2 years to basically buy down. Because in 2 years, we had a lot of general obligation debt coming off the books. And so it was structured enough that we can kind of keep those big 2 priorities going and not have a bubble, so to speak, in the middle of the sidewalk program. Yep, thank you.
Thank you
Good
for
reminder.
watching over that. Mr. Gade, formal motion to be in order.
I'll move resolution 1524, declaring an official intent under Treasury Regulation 1.150-2 to issue debt to reimburse the city for certain original expenditures paid in connection with specified projects.
Second, please.
Second.
Public input. Oh, council discussion first.
Just clarifying, the amount that's in there for the sidewalk won't necessarily be paid back using sewer revenue, correct?
No, this is actually a resolution we're passing now for a future bond issue, for that large geo bond issue that'll be upcoming in April.
Okay.
So
Forgot about that one.
I incorrectly lumped them together earlier. This is for, not for the sewer issue. Thank you.
Any other comments from the council? Public input before we vote? Roll call vote, please.
Gade.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Lampe.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes?
Niendorf.
Yes.
Resnichek.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Resolution 15-24 is unanimously approved. Regular business item number 4 is to set a public hearing date for a bituminous seal coat program, which for the public maintains our residential streets. Formal motion, please.
I move to set the public hearing date to review the 2015 bituminous seal coat program project plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for March 2nd, 2015 at 7 PM in the Ivan Ike Ackerman Council chambers.
Is there a second?
Second.
Council discussion. Public input before we vote? Roll call vote, please.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes?
Lampe.
Yes.
Resnichek.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Niendorf.
Yes.
Gade.
Yes.
It's been unanimously approved, and March 2nd will be the date. Regular business item number 5 is to set a public hearing date to review our riverbank restoration plans for the Amvets area in southeast Waverly. City Administrator, any comments, please?
This is part of a project that we received a REAP grant for to help us restore that last chunk of riverbank there and put in the native stone and native grasses to restore that riverbank. It also includes some grading of the area and prairie restoration in the Amvets Park that is not the ball diamonds. So the 3 ball diamonds will stay, along with concessions in that area and parking, but this will be to the east of that, between the tree line and the ballpark.
Formal motion, please.
I move to set the public hearing date to review the Amvets Area Riverbank Restoration 2015 project plan specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for March 2nd, 2015 at 7 PM in the Ivan Ike Ackerman Council chambers.
Second, please.
Second.
Council discussion.
Just quick question, when this is all said and done, who owns the ball diamonds then? I guess that's always been kind of a question that no one really had a clear answer on. And so, I mean, I want to be careful here, the groups that have developed the ball diamond certainly own that development, but it sits on whose property?
We've actually cleared that up.
We've actually purchased that from those groups, the various groups.
Good question. More discussion?
And if the project were to come in under the 101,000, I mean, it's not that much money, but the local funding, I mean, is there a possibility that we wouldn't pay anything?
No, we're required to pay intercog out of our own local funds,
Oh, okay.
so we must pay
So
that.
that's set regardless of where the project comes in?
Correct.
That's a percentage.
Okay.
Other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Niendorf.
Yes.
Resnichek.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Lampe.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes?
Gade.
Yes.
Sorry. Who did I miss?
Okay.
McKenzie.
Yes.
You.
Sorry.
Get for going right in
I'm
the
sorry.
But
I
not
know.
least,
Who hasn't voted yet?
our public hearing is unanimously
more to go.
approved.
Yeah, I know.
Regular business item number 6 is the first reading of an amended zoning ordinance to include visual barrier standards between single-family residential and multifamily residential / non-residential units, and the setting of a public hearing date. City Administrator.
This ordinance is the result of hard work by Ben Cohout and by the Planning and Zoning Commission. They looked over various ordinance samples from communities and looked at how it would be used in our community. And I think they came up with a very good way of providing guidance and rules on what's to be done between zoning areas to provide that visual and sound barrier for like residential and commercial, those kinds of, where they come together. Before, it was left somewhat to the discretion of the person who was in the zoning office, and we felt that that wasn't fair, that it was easier to make some standards, to provide some actual guidance in what could be used and how it could be done, and to make sure that it wasn't done different ways in different projects, different places in the community, so that it would be very consistent. And it was to try to give those options to use a variety of ways to do that when screening was required. So we think this is a good way to supplement our code now and provide some guidance to those contractors so they'll know what their costs are. The developers will know their costs that they have to incur if they're going to be developing land that is near a residential zoning area.
Okay.
Does this include the dry run up against residential homes and with
It shouldn't.
trail and all that kind of stuff?
The dry run is it's an environmentally sensitive zoning, so I don't think that it would apply with the residential zoning.
This is more for residential and.
Commercial.
business.
And this is all for new construction, or is that?
New construction, yeah, it's not retrofitting anything.
This kind of came about, just a little bit of history going back, and Edie can kind of help me on this but I think the family video, when that went in, there was some concern about screening towards the residential there. And Fairway, when that was done, there was some concern about how close that was to residential. So those are kind of the two big projects. And then when we discussed 2 years ago on the possibility of a convenience store down on 4th Street Southwest, and that being located near some residential, there was some discussion again, what was the screening going to be like? So planning and zoning's been working on this for a while on those, but those are a couple big projects that might jar some people's memories as to what we're talking about. What is the two zones coming near each other, kind of where those are meeting, trying to establish a kind of standard to go with those.
Formal motion, please.
I'll move the first reading of ordinance 992, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of Waverly, Iowa for inclusion of visual barrier standards between single-family residential and multifamily residential or non-residential units, and setting a public hearing for March 16th, 2015 at 7 p.m. in the Ivan Ike Ackerman Council Chambers at City Hall.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Further council discussion?
So you said this would apply to new construction. What about like something we've maybe already approved, but they haven't actually started yet, or when?
Well, it's not effective yet, and since it's not passed, we can't enforce it.
Right, but I don't know if I can explain that right. Like the convenience store, for example. We rezoned that, and they purchased that land, and at the time, I think they were going to do some screening anyway, but at the time, maybe they wouldn't have had to, but they haven't started yet. Would they still be, how does that work?
I think it would still apply to them because they haven't really proceeded with their project and received building permits, yeah. It's when they pull the permits.
I'd like to invite any public comments. Planning and zoning?
I guess I was curious, the section 104.13.4 is just summarizing the type of screening. It gives choices of fencing, green belt, or berming. How do we decide, or how do they decide? Just kind of what fits, or?
Yeah, I think they have a choice. Any of those would actually comply with the ordinance, so it really is the developer and the builder's choice of the kind of screening. That would probably be the kind of thing that would be discussed when the site plans were being reviewed, and the adjoining owners were probably consulted about what they think would be best to help screen those areas. We hope during the planning process, when we're talking about pulling permits and we're talking about those kinds of things, that would be the kind of discussion we'd have with neighbors especially.
You know, kind of in your world with the planning part, if there's a new development that, berming might look nice or whatever, that, as opposed to, maybe what's ever
Yeah, it might be easier to get, I mean, it just depends on
Sometimes
how much room you have to do it too.
Sometimes a fence might be really
Yeah.
appropriate too, or
Right.
whatever, but
Right.
nice fence. So I was just curious, I didn't see if that was required.
Or even the possibility of trees and, or.
Yeah, there's a tree option too. Yeah.
The Planning and Zoning Commission did a nice job kind of
Yeah.
whittling through that and coming up with different options based on, again, space and where they're actually putting something in, because they might be putting something in an existing lot where there isn't a lot of space, and so a fence would make much more sense to do that.
I don't think we want to discourage any new development either. I mean, hopefully, when it's zoned commercial, they've taken that into consideration when they did zone it that begin with.
And I think that was taken into consideration in planning and zoning's discussion too, is to try to find a balance between protecting the residential folks who are already there and not discouraging development either, and trying to find some balance there.
I think this is great.
This is an important issue. Any more discussion? Public, again, last chance to weigh in. Roll call vote.
Kangas,
Yes.
Gade,
Yes.
Resnick,
Yes.
Neuendorf,
Yes.
Lampy,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
First reading of ordinance 992 is unanimously approved, and also the public hearing date. Regular business item number 7 is a resolve to approve rooftop solar panels at Nestle Beverage Company. City Administrator?
This is a special provisional use permit request. They have installed rooftop solar panels at Nestle there close to First Street, and then realized that they needed a permit to do so. So here they are with a permit request for those. We do not allow those to be put up just on their own, so it is a special provisional use.
Thank you. Motion, please.
I'll move resolution 1525, approving special provisional use permit for rooftop solar panels at 76th Avenue Northwest.
A second, please.
Second.
Motion second. Council discussion. Public input. Roll call vote.
Lampy.
Yes.
Sorry, one comment. It might be good if that'd be an interesting topic. Maybe they can send some information. I'd be curious to see what kind of energy they're saving and stuff. Just, maybe since they did it after the fact, we can ask them for a favor.
Right. You help us.
And planning and zoning reviewed this too, just FYI. It comes, I think, with their recommendations.
With our, just real quickly, with our project we're doing right now too, with energy conservation and energy use, it would be interesting to see at basically a 40 kilowatt array, what can that actually produce in Iowa where we have a lot of cloudy days and gray days, and what can it offset? Knowing how much space it took on their facility.
May the minutes so indicate. Roll call vote.
Lampy,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Neuendorf,
Yes.
Waldstein,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Gade,
Yes.
Resnick.
Yes.
Resolution 15-25 is unanimously approved. Regular business item number 8 is resolved to authorize easement and property acquisition from James and Sandra Jansen for our airport runway project. We can go right to a motion. Is there a formal motion?
I'll move resolution 1526, approving acquisition of property and easements from James P. Jansen and Sandra S. Jansen for the safety zone project at the airport for the amount of $155,500.
Is there a second?
Second.
Council discussion. Public input before we vote. Roll call vote.
Gade,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Lampy,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Neuendorf,
Yes.
Resnick,
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Resolution 15-26 is unanimously approved. Regular business item number 9 is resolved to approve purchase of some easement property from Wartburg College needed for our dry run project. City Administrator, any comments?
I'll turn this to Bill. He's negotiated this as part of tonight's Wartburg land transfers.
This is a compromise. We normally would have purchased the land that would have the channel, and we didn't, we negotiated this instead because the easement is cheaper. We didn't have to acquire the property, and it actually is a pretty good compromise between the two parties. We are taking and using for the new dry run through that block, a fairly large chunk of land that would have been used perhaps by Wartburg. And they had taken 2 houses down at a cost of over $160,000, I believe it was total, between the cost of acquisition, the cost of demolition. We wouldn't have taken all of it, obviously, but we would have taken some of it. We also informed them they had to replace a sidewalk that now has to come out, so we thought it was only fair. We gave them back the cost, since we were the ones that insisted that they put it in. Then there was the question of the alley. The alley that was vacated tonight was also in this block, and we just put that as a part of the negotiation. The compromise was basically to provide the alley to Wartburg at no additional cost. It was just sort of a net figure that we came up with as part of the consideration. We also got some additional easement area so that we could clean out while we're there the waterway that comes underneath the railroad tracks from the north. That would then feed into this so that we can clean that up too at the same time.
Formal motion?
I'll move resolution 1527 approving purchase of temporary construction easement from Wartburg for the Dry Run Creek project in the amount of $13,603.60.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion seconded. Council discussion. Public comments. Roll call vote.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Lampy,
Yes.
Resnicek,
Yes?
Neuendorf,
Yes.
Waldstein,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Gade.
Yes.
Resolution 15-27 is unanimously approved. Regular business item number 10 is to award contract for the dry run contract, for the dry run project. City Administrator, do we need any more comments on that one?
Just pretty big milestone night.
It is.
Tonight, awarding this contract, and the contract also includes the cost to rebuild 4th Street between Bremer and 2nd Avenue because of a box culvert replacement there, and the replacement of the box culvert on 20th Street Northwest heading out towards Eisenach Village. 2 other key areas that we've talked about quite a bit.
Formal motion would be in order.
Move resolution 1528 awarding contract for the Dry Run Creek improvements 2014 to Peterson Contractors Incorporated of Rhinebeck, Iowa, for the bid amount of $6,990,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Council discussion.
Again, my big concern with this is it's a pretty big project, and it's gonna be tearing up a big portion of the middle of our town, and just kind of, with the Cedar River Parkway issues we had last year, making sure we stay on top of this and keep the feet to the fire on the progress towards this, because there is some time crunches in there to really be disruptive to the community as a whole for the least amount of time as possible.
Spoken on behalf of the entire council.
Not really looking for names, but do we know who the subcontractors are?
We'll have a list in a week.
Public input before we vote.
Going to the Waverly. Since the Dry Run Creek is, the channel is being moved to the west, north of Bremer Avenue, do we have the DNR permit to change a waterway? And if we don't have it, whose responsibility is it to get it?
Stay right there. City engineer, could you respond?
Yes, we have all the permits.
All permitted. No problem.
We have that permit on hand in Public Works?
You're more than welcome to come look at all the permits, Dwayne.
Thank you, I will.
Thank you. Other public input before we vote? Roll call vote, please.
Lampy.
Yes.
Nyendorf.
Yes.
Resnichek.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Gade.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Resolution 15-28 is unanimously approved. Other business item number 11 is a resolve to award contract for Second Avenue Southwest reconstruction and the Babcock Woods Trail extension, which for the public were bid together. City Administrator, we've talked about this a lot. Anything new? Motion to be in order.
I'll move Resolution 1529, awarding the contract for the Second Avenue Southwest reconstruction and Babcock Woods Trail extension, 2015, to Heartland Asphalt Incorporated of Mesa City, Iowa, for the bid amount of $736,482.38.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. And council discussion. Public input before we vote. Roll call vote.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Nyendorf.
Yes.
Gade.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Resnichek.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Lampy.
Yes.
Resolution 15-29 is unanimously approved. Regular business item number 12 is a resolve to award contract for our 2015 pedestrian ramp construction. Motion be in order.
Move Resolution 1530, awarding contract for the citywide pedestrian ramp construction, 2015 project. I just jumped to my keyboard here. And all that. Oh, there it is. To Boulder Contracting of Grundy Center, Iowa, for the bid amount of $111,252.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Council discussion. Public input before we vote. Roll call vote.
Nyendorf.
Yes.
Resnichek.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Gade.
Yes.
Lampy.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Resolution 15-30 is unanimously approved. Regular business item number 13 is resolved to award contract for the Bremer Avenue sidewalk along Bremwood Children's Home. Formal motion would be helpful.
I'll move Resolution 1531, awarding contract for the West Bremer Avenue sidewalk extension to Boulder Contracting of Grundy Center, Iowa, for the bid amount of $91,552.06.
Second, please. Council discussion. Public input before we vote. Roll call vote, please.
Kangas.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Gade.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Nyendorf.
Yes.
Resnichek.
Yes.
Waldstein. I said that twice.
Yeah.
Why do I
I'll
keep
vote
doing-
again if you want me to.
Sorry. Lampy.
Yes.
Resolution 15-31 is officially unanimously approved. Regular business item number 14 is a resolve to award contract for the Second Street Northwest Storm Sewer / Street improvements. This is near St. Paul's Church, which we've been working on. I think we can go right to a motion.
Move approval of Resolution 1532, awarding contract for the Second Street Northwest Area Storm Sewer and Street Improvements, St. Paul's Church area, to Denver Underground and Grading of Denver, Iowa, for the bid amount of $767,689.65.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, and council discussion.
My only comment, it says street improvements, but we're basically doing a full street reconstruction, right? I mean, is there any reason why it says improvements and not construction? That just
We're improving the street.
seems like when we did Fifth Street and Fourth Street, it was street reconstruction, but I don't know, whatever, doesn't matter. Just wondered why it was labeled that way. but it's getting all torn up and getting all put back down, so it's a total redo, right?
Yeah.
I move we tear it
So
down,
once
put
they
it
do
back
it, they'll
down.
improve it.
Yep.
It'll be an improvement.
Other comments?
That's good to
Well, I'm
clar-
just saying.
Good to clarify.
Yeah, it is
Yep.
a full depth recon.
Right,
Yep.
yep, there you go.
It's not just a chip seal or.
Yep.
Other discussion,
Some lacquer on it.
Yep.
public input?
Do we have a time when First Street will be blocked off so they can do the cut across First Street and cross Coleman Park for that part of the storm drain? Do we know when that part of the work will start? And do we have a finish date for that part of the work?
Was that part of the briefing? Do we,
I know they need to be done by May 28th.
We talked about it, but I don't know if you had time.
The completion date was established, but we're giving the contractor some flexibility. We'll be able to report back once we have the pre-con
okay,
as far as what the specific schedule is, yes.
okay. Was that half your question? The other half was what?
Well, that's the finish date is May 28th?
With flex,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, you said we won't know for sure until after the pre-construction
right.
Right.
gathering.
And the start date is like 1st of May then?
No, that's the part that is in flex until we have the pre-construction meeting. There's a specified mandatory completion date for the section at the First Street and First Avenue intersection. And then there's a second phase, second stage to the work that has a different construction window.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the question. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Mix offered to help me in case I don't get it quite right.
Discount double check, yeah.
Resnick.
Yes.
Yes.
Kangas. Lampe.
Yes.
Nyendorf.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Gade.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Resolution 15-32 is unanimously approved. Regular business item number 15 is a resolve to award contract for our dog park fencing project. City Administrator, we've been talking back and forth on that.
You'll note that the low bid from D&N Fencing out of Cedar Rapids came in under the engineer's estimate by about $20,000, and according to staff, the advisory committee recommends using that savings to plow back into the project and for other amenities and finishes at the site. This is for a 6-foot chain link galvanized fence, similar to what is at the soccer field.
Formal motion?
I'll move Resolution 1533 awarding contract for the Waverly Dog Park fencing project to DNN Fencing of Cedar Rapids, Iowa for the bid amount of $33,358.50.
Is there a second?
Second.
Council discussion.
What other amenities are we talking about?
Pop-up squirrels.
Rabbits.
Rabbit on a rail.
We haven't really decided on that yet, but there's several catalogs, different kind of dog equipment they can.
I didn't know if it was dog toys or people toys. They just-
Oh, no, it's dog-related
Like
toys.
restrooms, I mean, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the restrooms, we have that figured in
Alright.
there as part of the project.
Plant a few
Or,
trees and.
no,
put a few
drinking fountains,
fire
restrooms were going, I think, at first with porta potties.
Restrooms is kind of a long-term
Yeah,
project.
long-term, let me be.
First one, you
long-term,
are out
but
there and like the dual height drinking fountains. for
be all
people and
kinds of
dogs.
fun things.
Some toys.
Good to see something, good to see something come under budget.
Yeah, there was a wide range of, those bids were quite varying. So that was, we were surprised, they're pleasantly surprised when the bid came in under the estimate, so.
I do like the idea of saving that back for other possible amenities as we build it.
Yeah, and we can grow with this whole project, and this will give us flexibility. Do we do formal motion? No. Formal motion?
Yeah, we
Yes,
did.
yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Public input on this project. Roll call vote, please.
Waldstein.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Resnick. Nyendorf.
Yes.
Gade.
Yes.
Lampe.
Yes.
Resolution 15-33 is unanimously approved. Regular business item number 16 is a resolve to set user fees and charges for parks, swimming pool, and cemetery. City Administrator, any comments?
This comes as a recommendation from the Leisure Services Committee, who reviews these fees, and Tab has a highlight for you.
Golf Commission has also reviewed the golf fees, so both commissions make recommendations of these fees.
To be part of this motion? The golf is separate, though, correct?
Oh, it is?
Well, you included it in the,
It's in the resolution.
I don't have the resolution in front of me.
The golf's included with.
Oh, yes, it is, yeah. It's in the resolution. So it's one, the Leisure Services Department fees,
So
Yes.
it can include all of them tonight.
right?
appreciate that clarity, because
Highlight
it's not,
those changes, Tab?
I'm sorry?
Can you highlight the changes or?
Oh, sure.
Public?
For Harlington Cemetery, we've had listed a holiday burial fee, and we don't do those anymore, so we're going to pull those out, basically cleaning up that.
You don't do holiday burials, or we
We
don't do?
don't.
Oh, okay.
Swimming pool, we added a new program called Try Golf to our pool parties fees, where it's a way to get kids to try golf. And we set up a 9-hole course just on the other side of the miniature golf course. In parks, we increased shelter fees by $5. We don't remember the last time we increased that fee, and the history that I provided you has no increase for those fees for the history of what I gave you. So I think it's like 2007 I put it back to. No change in the Civic Center, and we increased certain season pass and kart season ticket fees.
thank you.
Tab, can you talk on the golf course, so you kind of work through different fees in different years, so it's kind of a staggered approach?
Correct. Much of the time, we alternate between season passes, daily fees, and cart fees. Last year, we increased cart fees. This year, we looked at the season passes. We look at area towns, we look at competition, and we look at where we think they probably should be at. That's how come we don't raise them all, is sometimes we think we're pretty much on the button on some, but we have a little space to increase a couple others.
Tab, can you also talk about why you're recommending no increase to the Civic Center fees?
Right now, we think that our fees are in line for a meeting room for a private group, and then we try to provide a deal to nonprofits.
Working our way to a motion. Motion, please.
I'll move Resolution 15-34, setting user fees and charges for the parks, swimming pool, Harlington Cemetery. Do we need to insert golf in there? And golf for 2015 as recommended by the Leisure Services Commission and staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Further council discussion? Public input? Roll call vote.
Niendorf,
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Lampy,
Yes.
Resnicek,
Yes.
Gade,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Resolution 15-34 is unanimously approved. Lastly, regular business item number 17 is a resolve to accept a quitclaim deed from Wartburg College for a small piece of property needed for our 20th Street box culvert project. We need a little explanation.
There's a small triangle that's between the 20th Street and the railroad right-of-way, and it appears on the maps for the county's records. So I created a legal description and sent it over to them, and they looked at it and said, you know what, Wartburg doesn't own that. So then we tried to figure out who owned it, and we couldn't figure out if anybody owned it. What most likely happened is the predecessor to Wartburg that owned that quarter section, where the railroad kind of sweeps on the southwest corner there, probably assumed that the railroad right-of-way took up the entire corner and didn't realize that the actual right-of-way missed the corner, so there was a little corner missing. And so they never put it in their deed since the early 1900s. So rather than try to do something with a lot of legal time and expense, we're just going to take a deed from Wartburg because they probably could have made an argument that they were the intended recipient of that deed by virtue of being the successor to all those parties that owned that before them. And this way, we got a deed from them in 10 years. The law says we're presumed to be the owner and we can claim it against anybody else. So it's the best way to do it. They were willing to do it even though they didn't really have any interest in the property. So there was no consideration.
Thank you. Motion, please.
Move approval of Resolution 1535, accepting a quitclaim deed from Wartburg for property needed for the 20th Street Northwest Box Culvert Project.
Second?
Second.
Motion and second. Further council discussion? Public input before we vote. Roll call vote.
Kangas,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Lampy,
Yes.
Resnicek,
Yes.
Nyendorf,
Yes.
Waldstein,
Yes.
Gade.
Yes.
Resolution 15-35 is unanimously approved. We have 3 reports of submission for tonight. We have the Bremer Waverly Law Enforcement Board from January 12th, 2015, their minutes. Any comments on the Law Enforcement Board minutes? Not officially received. Waverly Senior Center Group, their report. They're officially received, and the monthly financial report for January 2015 we have before us. Any comments?
Just real quickly, Mayor, if you look through the report, you'll notice that most of our departments are right at that 58 to 60% variance through January. Again, we run the July 1st to June 30th fiscal year, and since a good chunk of our costs are in the salaries or associated supplies, it runs pretty smoothly following that date timeline. So that's a quick way to look through there, see if there's anything out of alignment. If you have any questions, as always, don't hesitate to contact Jack or me.
Thank you. Are there further staff comments beyond the Green Bridge that you'd like to make?
In addition to Councilman Kangas's comments earlier, just on the project management side, we're also working on just the community notification side, that it's going to be a busy, essentially 2 years. Spoke to the Kiwanis Club this morning, and in the next few weeks, we'll be having a Wartburg intern join us to come up with strategies for social media and pushing out information through the community for our project updates.
Good homework. City Council comments. Let's start on this side. Councilman Gade?
I don't have much. I think the Green Bridge, I think, will be a big topic going forward. I know Ward 1 especially, and I have brothers that live over there and can't get to and from their house to work and schools and things like that, so, but it'll all work out in the end, I'm sure, so.
I'll be with you on that one.
I'll just bring up the fact that the library, the public library, just did a really good space study. And I think that this spring we'll be seeing some changes in the library. Might have to be closed for a little while new carpeting is being put in, but there will be a totally new look on the inside to improve, just by moving things around, just to improve services and the usage of the space.
Mr. Nyendorf?
Good.
I'm good.
Okay.
Dan?
Obviously, the Green Bridge is important for, like Wes said, for Ward 1, I guess. I'd be happy to hear anybody, in Ward 1 or in the whole city for that matter, their opinions, what they feel is the right thing to do with that. I think it really affects about everybody. I mean, there isn't anybody in town that really doesn't drive across it, so would really welcome any comments on that topic.
Sense of urgency is being elevated here. Thank you. Dan?
Just a question, I don't think I've seen it in the last week or so, but the fencing along Bremer Avenue by the hotel project seems to lay down periodically, and I'm not sure now that they've got their foundations in, if they could do something a little more permanent.
We can check with them
Just-
on that.
Trip hazards, that type of thing, and doesn't look the best, I guess, on Main Street.
Thank you. Mayor's comments, 2 congratulations. Week and a half ago, Leisure Services did a candlelight bike trail ski snow event. Had over 100 people there. I attended. I skied with thanks to Crawdaddies for $10 rentals for cross-country skis. It was a great event, and let the public watch for the next events. Everything they do in those bike trails is worthwhile. Number 2, last Saturday, a very, very fine Wartburg Community Symphony concert was held at Newman Auditorium with Valley High of Des Moines High School students participating, featuring also Simon Estes singing 2 songs, including Old Man River. It was really special. Let the public know that this is a very fine symphony orchestra that we have. They do spectacular things and worthy of our support and your participation in the future. Is there a motion to adjourn? That's why we need the pro temp. Nothing at all. Okay. Then a motion to adjourn.
We adjourn.
Second.
All in favor signify with yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Meeting adjourned.